to MovieNaut, where we will discuss cult classic movies from various genres and decades. Stay tuned for this episode. All right, episode 3 of MovieNaut. I got Gary and Bill again. Bill's having a bad night.
Oh, no, I'm having a good night.
It's anybody who comes across him who'll be having a bad night.
Yeah, true. So tonight's episode was actually suggested by Gary to do 5 favorite cult horror movies, and perfect for the season, and for even though this is not going to air on Friday the 13th, we're recording it on Friday the 13th. That's why Gary's in his little mask and his top hat, for the festivities.
Exactly.
So just like the other 2 episodes, we're just gonna go one by one, talk about the films that we chose, and then go from there. And I thought I'll start off this time, and I'll let you 2 fight it out for the next one.
He's got a knife. That's not good.
Oh, okay. So he kind of gets it. So
Yeah.
let Bill go
shot in
after
3D.
me. If only, right? Well, I'm going to start off with one of the older films in my selection, and it's The Black Sleep. And this has pretty much an all-star cast with Basil Rathbone, Lon Chaney, John Carradine, Bela Lugosi, and it's got Tor Johnson in it. You know him. Now this one is the basic, kind of falls under the mad scientist thing, where he develops this thing called the Black Sleep, which if he administers it at certain times, it'll either keep you alive or it will kill you. Well, his friend and colleague was accused of murder, so he was going to go to the gallows. So just prior to it, he gave him the potion. So when the doctor went in to check him before hanging him, he appeared to be dead. So they just didn't hang him, so because he's already dead supposedly. So they brought him back, and lo and behold, this mad doctor, who's played by Basil Rathbone, he has done this experiment before, but he's done it, and while people are under, he's done some things with their brains, and that altered, I guess, their behaviors and whatnot. And so he has a whole dungeon full of all these monstrosities, and of course, just like any of those old movies, the bad guy never wins. He always gets his comeuppance, and it's really good. I found this on YouTube during the pandemic, and I was like, I didn't even know it existed. So I watched it, and I liked it so much I had to go and get the Blu-ray, and it's a great, one of the more lesser known horror movies out there, because I don't hear many people talking about it.
It's a good one. I actually like that one. You hit upon one that's one of my favorites. Anything with Bela Lugosi, and
Right.
I don't know if you know this. That's technically Bela Lugosi's last film. The footage, I know we talk about Plan 9 being his last film. The footage
Right.
in The Black Sleep was shot after the footage for Plan 9 was shot. So that's
Oh,
actually
yeah.
his last film. But the release date, Plan 9 comes out afterwards. But yeah, if you do
Right.
the timeline, yeah, he shoots the footage for this. That's why he was mute. He couldn't even talk by then. He was really going downhill at that, but when they were shooting that film.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. And it's just kind of neat to have those icons there. Also, John Carradine's in it. I mean,
And you don't recognize him until he speaks because he's got that big,
right.
yeah, he's got the big beard on in that one.
Yeah. And it never fails. Whatever kind of character he plays, he's always has that crazed voice. It's like, I mean, even if it's a good guy, he still has that crazed kind of voice.
He does. He was Shakespeare trained, actually. He came from the Shakespeare stage.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I saw about that. But I guess horror movies pays more.
He found a niche in there somewhere.
Right.
And he
right.
went for it.
All right. Yeah. So that's my first choice.
That's a good movie. I like that one, actually.
And I'll go to you, Mother. I'll go to you, Mother.
Okay, I have to go like this at my list because now I don't have my glasses on. But I decided to go chronologically this time. I have one silent movie. And I think this is one of those movies that I consider a work of art. And almost some movies I do call it a work of art. This one is almost literally a work of art. It's the German expressionist film, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I don't know if you guys have seen this one. It runs rather short, at least in modern times, a little less than an hour. There might be longer versions that at one time existed. I think that's about the version that exists now, because a lot of silent films were lost. I think there's something like 1/3 or 1/4 of all silent films are all that remains anymore. But this is one where you have a kind of a bad scientist again. He's kind of doing the traveling show, and he has a somnambulist, and the somnambulist is the opposite of somebody with insomnia, right? They can't stay awake, so he's always asleep until Dr. Caligari brings him out of his cabinet. That's why it's the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and he makes predictions. Sometimes he predicts that people will die, and sometimes then he has a somnambulist go out and kill them. So his predictions do come true.
Right.
If you've seen the Rob Zombie music video for Living Dead Girl, they recreated that and did I really have to say a really good job at recreating it. Really early days of motion picture. They at one point have like literally a picture frame that they're just acting in, which is kind of strange. Maybe there's a couch or something in there or something, but it's really it's almost like work of art. They do have the drop scenery that you might get in those old movies, but this is back in the days when they were all hand drawing this stuff, hand painting these drops, backgrounds and everything. And I've always been one. Modern audiences kind of see, CGI. They say, hey, those drop sceneries look fake, and then later on they say those hand-built miniatures or whatever look fake. I'm like, I think CGI, hand-made miniatures, backdrop scenery, the blue screen, you can tell it's a movie anyway with any one of those. So it takes just as much imagination to do any of them, in my opinion. I'm not saying one's better or worse than the other. My opinion, pretty much the same. You can tell it's a movie, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it is a really fascinating movie. It was remade in the 70s, and I didn't look it up before I did this, but I think it had Klaus Kinski, I want to believe, stars in the remake. But I have not seen the remake. But I know it exists. So that was the first one I wanted to talk about. Really fascinating film. Probably my favorite silent horror movie of all time. There are a few other good ones, Phantom of the Opera and Nosferatu, but I think this one's a little bit better than any of those. At least in my opinion. Oh, and that's right. The somnambulist himself is he actually was German because this was made in Germany, came over to the United States, and he winds up in Casablanca as he's what is he, a general, a lieutenant? He's the guy who's above Claude Rains in that movie, right? He's like the leader of that area. Same actor, Conrad. I don't know if I can pronounce his last name, Veit or something like that, Veidt or something like, I think something like that. But yeah, that's a little piece of trivia in there as well. But, great movie if you guys have ever seen it. I love that one.
I saw it a long time ago, but I'll definitely revisit that.
Yeah, I revisited it with the family not too long ago because we were watching Rob Zombie videos and they were like, so I kept telling them, this is Kevin and Dr. Caligari, and they're looking at me like, well, okay, we're gonna have to sit down and watch the movie one day. So we did, and they did actually kind of like it. Very atmospheric.
Oh yeah. All right, Jerry.
Okay, so I sort of went back and forth. Let me just preface this by saying I'm doing mine in the order, sort of in the order of I'm saving my two favorites for last. And the other ones, there's kind of a big mass of movies that could fit into there, so it's sort of what I decided on to go with. And so I had like three different ones that I was thinking about for this slot, and ultimately I decided to go with the Shining miniseries, not the Kubrick movie. I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of Kubrick films. I think sometimes he goes for style over substance way too much, and his movies tend to be confusing to me. And I love the book of The Shining, and Kubrick changed too much in it for my taste, for Stephen King's taste too. And so when they did the miniseries, they really captured the book so well. I know some people don't like the miniseries, but I just think it's a lot more frightening, and it's a lot more powerful tale that way. Of course, it's a lot longer too, but you don't hear people say great stuff about that version. Everybody always talks about the Kubrick movie, but I really think the miniseries deserves a lot of love because it's just a really good film.
And was it Stephen King involved in that somehow?
I think he might have been. He may have written the screenplay. I'm not sure. I don't remember, but I do know that he definitely approved of it more.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I think I remember seeing that one. That was what, in the 90s?
I think so. Yeah, either the 80s or the 90s. I think it was the 90s. It was.
Yeah.
I have it on DVD, and I just watched it. Maybe a year ago. It's still just as good.
Yeah, I gotta check that one out again. It's been a while.
Yeah, I've seen the Kubrick film. I have to admit, I am a fan of the Kubrick film, but I think I would be open to at least checking out that mini series. Actually, I've heard good things.
Let me just clarify. I actually do like the Kubrick film as a horror film. I don't really like it as an adaptation of The Shining. I don't think it's a good adaptation.
Right.
One thing it does have is Jack Nicholson. I mean, he kind of.
Yeah.
But I would still like to check it.
Stephen King said that was one of the problems with it, though. He felt that the book is about sort of a normal guy going nuts. And he said that Nicholson starts off pretty nuts to begin with, and I can't say I disagree with that.
I mean, he is Jack Nicholson. I can't say I disagree with that either. Yeah, fair enough. It's a fair criticism. He's Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
He plays nuts very well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, to some degree, as much as I love Jack Nicholson, you sort of get the same performance in just about every movie.
Well, that's probably true. But he is good at that one. I mean, it's kind of the old school characters. It kind of always, Jimmy Stewart's always Jimmy Stewart, no matter what movie he's in, even though he's a slightly different character. But he's kind of part of that era. Cary Grant's always Cary Grant, even though he's playing these different characters. He's kind of part of that school.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think I saw this one on YouTube. I want to say I saw it on YouTube in the past maybe five or so years. Not a great quality, of course, but I mean, definitely if that it sounds like it'd be better to get it on DVD or if it ever comes out on Blu-ray, that would probably be the way
Yeah.
to go.
I found a box set. It had Salem's Lot, The Shining, and the original It, all in one box set, and it wasn't too expensive either. It was on Amazon. I got it a couple of years ago, a year or so ago. Yeah.
That's good. All right. Well, my next one is one that I found about 5, 6 years ago on YouTube again, but it was under a different title. It was under "Let Sleeping Corpses Lie," but the other title is "The Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue," and this is a Spanish zombie film with some English actors in it, and I didn't even know it existed. And there was a tagline on advertising that says one of the best zombie movies ever, and it's more of like a ecological zombie movie where that they're not dead. Well, some of them are dead, but they're activated by this an oddly farming equipment that does like a sonar thing. It was primarily used to kill the insects so that the crops will grow better. It it animated the dead and the recently dead, and also the not so recently, and then also infants. And it was just a really kind of a dark. It had more of a British feel than a Spanish feel, but you can you see a lot of Spanish actors in there, and I have to agree, it is one of the best zombie movies. I probably would say it's probably the best zombie movie most people haven't seen, because it comes right at 1974, so right sandwiched in between night and dawn of the dead. So it's like I don't think there was anything else that was remotely flesh-eater in between night and dawn that I know of. So this was kind of.
Dead things.
What was that?
Children shouldn't play with dead things was in between.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. So it was about I guess around the same time period, 73, 74. So, but this one, I'm not going to spoil the ending. I really think if you like zombie movies and you like, it has an atmosphere to it. So it's not like only killing. It's like it has storylines behind it. Some good and not so good acting. There's obviously dubbing on the Spanish actors, but other than that, it's a really good movie to if you like zombie movies to check it out. Because it's not like the modern zombie movies where it's like I don't mind silly, but some of them are a little too silly. Some too over the top, and they kind of lose what a zombie is supposed to be. It's not that they're not comedians. They may do comedic things, but they're not comedians. So it's like I prefer a more serious zombie film, with few exceptions of Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things and Shaun of the Dead. Those two. But that's my choice. If you haven't seen it, one to look up. You can probably find it under its other title. Let sleeping corpses lie. But that's a butchered down version.
Yeah, I confess I have not caught that one. Wonder if Tubi might have it. So my second one, I'm going chronological today. So I started with The Silence. We'll do the early talkies. The Old Dark House is another one of my personal favorites. I first caught this, I think it was in the 90s. Yeah, it was in the 90s on American Movie Classics, back when they used to actually show classic American movies. It's James Whale directed, the same guy who did Frankenstein, The Bride of Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man. And Boris Karloff comes back. He plays Morgan, one of the butlers. It's your typical story that was pretty cliche today, but in the day, maybe not quite as cliche. The car breaks down. They have to go up to a mansion. It's pouring down rain. The road's flooded. And they wind up in this mansion with this really odd family living in there, the Femmes. Ernest Thesiger is back in this as well as one of the Femmes. He was Dr. Pretorius in The Bride of Frankenstein. Most people would recognize him there. Does his usual outlandish, over-the-top performance, and it's really creepy. It does have some funny moments, a few, not too over the top in my opinion, at least, but some people do disagree with me on that. Oh, and Charles Laughton comes by too, and winds up in there in the same home. And but as it goes on, everything about the Femmes just gets creepier and creepier and creepier. The old lady has a brief lesbian encounter with one of the women who's there. Don't blink because you'll miss it. But I think it's at least one of the earliest lesbian scenes put to film. Not consensual on the other girl's part. And then when they get to Saul, all the way up in the attic, that guy gave me nightmares. Like, not too many movies gave me nightmares, but when Saul comes out, that actually I had nightmares for a couple days after that. Really creepy character. I don't even know what actor. I don't think he ever did much else. He was probably a stage actor. In those days, they used a lot of stage people. And just for a little aside, I've always been of the strong opinion that the Rocky Horror Picture Show, we know they reference all kinds of other movies, right? I think they got the thread line, the baseline for their story plot from this movie. I'm pretty convinced of it. So I had my wife watch it eventually because she knows Rocky Horror better than I do, which is saying a little something. And when she was watching, she's like, "Yeah, I can see it." Because one thing she pointed out was they're at the table eating, and that's that one famous line everybody says now, have a potato. And they're doing like these things with the knife and fork. And if you watch Rocky Horror, they're doing that when they're eating meatloaf in the movie. So it was like, when she saw that, she's like, she pointed that out. I was like, there's got to be a connection. I mean, that had to be like the inspiration or something, some kind of baseline anyway. Anyway, though, it's such a good book. I actually hunted down the novel because it did come from a novel. The novel was Benighted by J.B. Priestley. I hunted it down. It's pretty close to the movie, except as most novels should do, gives you a little bit more insight into the characters' thoughts and things that are going on in the story. But other than that, it's pretty accurate anyway, fairly so. But yeah, it's been one of my favorites ever since. The Old Dark House. Karloff has the big beard. He's mute again. They have to have a waiver in the beginning of the movie saying that we promise you this really is Boris Karloff. I'm sure it was just ballyhoo. Everybody knew who Boris Karloff was by then. He was already done Frankenstein and The Mummy by this time. So, but anyway, it's long been one of my favorites ever since.
It's a fun movie. I've seen that on Svengoolie.
Oh, yeah, they probably have. He does a lot of Universal horrors.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun.
Okay, so I guess it's time for my second.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go with a John Carpenter movie. I admitted I'm a John Carpenter fanatic. He's without question my favorite director. And this one is In the Mouth of Madness, which Sam Neill is this insurance investor. There's a horror author who's gone missing, and Sam Neill's convinced it's a publicity stunt. And he goes with, I think, the publicist from the book for his agent, the writer's agent, to look for him. And the movie just starts getting weirder and weirder and weirder. Strange things happen, and reality gets twisted, and it's very much an apocalyptic sort of story, really. Even though it sort of starts small, it really, which that's one of the trademarks of Carpenter for me. And one of the things I love about it is that things will start really small and then they just snowball in his movies. And before you know it, you're in some completely crazy place, and you're like, "How did we get here from where we came from?" But it just happens so naturally that you don't even notice it. But yeah, that's a crazy cool movie.
I like that one.
Starting to sell me on Carpenter.
Well, I think I saw that one in the movie theater.
Wow, I did not, but I love it.
Yeah, it's great, great film. All right. Well, my next one, I believe, is the first time we saw fast zombies. Now, there's a lot of people that say these are zombies. The director says they're radiation victims. It's Nightmare City. Pretty graphic looking cover there. It basically starts and finishes the same way. These animated or ravenous people until they act like zombies, but they can use knives, guns. They can even looks like they can drive, they can fly the airplane, and it's just a typical Italian type of gore movie, and it's like if you're going to call them zombies, these are one of the more brutal zombies. This was from 1980. These are one of the more brutal zombies from that time. I mean, nowadays, some of the zombies are pretty brutal, especially like that on that Dawn of the Dead remake. Those are brutal ones. I mean, they're two different things. These are more people that were caught up in some sort of a radiation thing, so they're not technically the living dead, but a lot of the horror buffs like to lump it in with that, just the same as kind of controversial, the 28 days and weeks later people say they're zombies, but they're more infected, so it's like I think that if anything, I would kind of, instead of saying zombies, they're flesh eaters, and but on this one, people don't necessarily turn because they get bitten. It's just the radiation is just gone into them. So when they die, they come back as basically crazy, murderous, and it's one of my favorites. I mean, it's not the greatest one out there, but it's just kind of a fun one. Definitely, I would say, kind of falls into that grindhouse category, because it's Just so low budget. You know, the blood is like this bright red. I mean, but it's fun if you like those kind of movies. You know, perfect Friday or Saturday night movie to watch, or any day of the week. But you know, if you like watching movies at night on a Friday or Saturday, those are perfect ones. You know, and that one I didn't see until like I think it was like in the mid '80s when I was working at a video store. I rented it because it had a different cover, but I was like going Nightmare City, and it's in the horror movie, so it might be good. But I don't know if anybody out there has watched it, but it's pretty good.
I have not seen that one.
Either.
But that infected zombies thing that carries them over does remind me of Richard Matheson's I Am Legend. That's kind of what they do in the novel.
Yeah,
although they're technically vampires instead of zombies, but still, it's.
They probably got that took a little bit of that, and then of course, obviously, this comes after Night and Dawn, so you know but they're fast. Was that?
Yeah, it's a good combination of the two.
Yeah,
which is kind of neat.
Yeah, so I think it's the first time that these flesh eaters are fast. Which, my opinion, I don't really like, because it's not as scary as something just dragging its way through. It's kind of giving you a false sense of security. It's like, he's a half mile away. I'm fine. And then all of a sudden, no, I'm not fine. He's right there. All right.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna stick in your same region because my next movie is an Italian horror movie, Black Sunday. One of the very first that really brought a lot of the Italian cinema to the United States, if not the first, at least one of the first. American International Pictures brought it over. It's the debut of Barbara Steele, at least the U.S. introduction to Mario Bava. So, you know, everything's just busting out with this one. It has witchcraft and Satan worship and all those kinds of great things that make a good horror movie. I'm sure you've probably seen that one at least a few times.
Oh yeah.
A lot of other Barbara Steele movies kind of steal a lot from it. They're almost, I hesitate to say remakes, but pretty close to it. Nightmare Castle and Long Hair of Death and things like that. But it's one of my favorites of the European horror movie genre. It's just so creepy, the black and white atmosphere that they were bringing over. It was really a new introduction to a whole new world of horror. Brought us so much more after that. Then you had your second generation with Dario Argento, and then later on Lucio Fulci and some of those other great Italian directors.
Yeah, that one was I want to say a recent discovery for me in the past decade or so. And yeah, like you said, very atmospheric.
Yeah, they really capture a lot of the early horror atmosphere with the black and white. I mean, it's very cinematic.
Oh yeah, I like that one.
Okay, so for my third, I'm back to Sam Neill, Event Horizon, which to me, in some ways, almost feels like a John Carpenter, but it isn't. And it's Sam Neill has designed this spaceship, and they sent it out, and then it just disappeared. Well, it turns out he's got some kind of a really weird drive that's supposed to take it super far away, and it basically took it to another dimension. But and suddenly the ship reappears, and so Sam Neill is sent with a crew to go find out what's happened to the ship. Only thing is, it came back with something with it, but they don't know what it is, and it's definitely cosmic horror kind of thing, and it gets really frightening really fast and very atmospheric, and just I get into that sort of cosmic horror thing pretty heavily, and it's definitely got that. So yeah, that's just a really creepy movie. They say I there was somebody a couple of years ago who said you can't have horror in space. Oh, come on. You not seen Alien? Have you not seen Event Horizon? Come on.
Oh yeah. And going further back, Vampire Planet. No, Planet of the Vampires.
Yep.
And of the Vampire. Yeah, another Mario Baba. I'll point out.
Yeah. Yeah, that
You
was.
can absolutely have horror in space. There's
Yeah.
no rules
Oh,
to
yeah.
this.
Didn't someone say it was like the haunted house in space or something like
Yeah,
that?
it kind of is. It comes back. It seems like none of the crew is there, but something's there. Um, and you don't exactly. I mean, you do find out sort of what it is, but not for a while.
Right. Yeah, and there's like an ultimate cut out there that's just, I guess the director doesn't want it released or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it makes that long movie even longer. I mean, I think what is the movie like? A little over 2 hours or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
I think it makes it closer to 3. But I don't think the director wants it released, or either that or the studio. One of the two don't want it released for whatever reason. It's like, just think of the fans. They want it. Who cares what you want? All right, I'm going back to Italy, and you mentioned his name, Bill, Dario Argento, and Phenomena. Now, I first saw this when it was released as Creepers, which was really butchered up. You didn't understand the whole. I mean, well, then again, Dario Argento movies aren't really cohesive to begin with, but it was almost like you were just with the Creepers, you were just kind of like dropped into the film and say, "Good luck trying to figure this out." Here, you kind of got a better idea as to what he was going for. It was kind of part giallo, part slasher, part supernatural, and it's basically this girl. She has a connection with insects, and she can, I guess, have like some sort of ESP with them, and then at the same time as she's doing all this, she also sleepwalks, and she walks into basically the killer's den, and it turned out to be one of those. If you remember in Deep Red, that little creepy doll thing, it had that same. The creature had that same kind of a look, but it wasn't a doll. It was like a person, and it was the killer, and so was its mother. So it kind of had like a Friday the 13th type of a thing going on there. It was, and I can't pronounce her name, Daria Nicoletti or something like that. It was Dario Argento's girlfriend or wife at the time, but it's really good. It's got a great soundtrack, kind of half heavy metal, half of Goblin, but they say it's Goblin, but it's basically Claudio Simonetti, the keyboardist. And it's a very 80s keyboard sound, And on this Blu-ray, they have both versions, so you can watch either one depending on which one you saw and which one you liked. I prefer the Phenomena version, you know. So, you know, if you like, you know, his Dario Argento's supernatural movies, this is a pretty good one. You know, it's got Jennifer Connelly, a young one. She's maybe in her early teens.
I do love Argento, actually. I think of those Italian directors that I named, in my opinion anyway, I think he's probably the best. He's really good. I have not caught Phenomenon yet, though. That should probably be next on my list of his to see. I did just watch one a couple weeks ago, but I won't say it because it might be on another episode, which one it was. but he is really good. A lot of his movies have that mother thing. I think it relates a little bit to Hitchcock, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because he always had, you know, everybody had mother issues in Hitchcock. But anyway, so my next movie is one of the bleakest movies I think I've ever seen. Witchfinder General, starring Vincent Price, directed by Michael Reeves, who only directed 3 movies, and then committed suicide. He's fairly young, suffered from depression, but this movie is phenomenal. And I have eventually watched all 3 of his movies. They're all really good, and I really wish this guy would have lived because what he could have done, not just for horror, but for a lot of cinema. You know, this is probably his biggest budget. The other 2 are The Sorcerer, which has Boris Karloff, and The She-Beast, which also has Barbara Steele. Those are far lower budgets, but are still solid movies. Like, you know, just 0 budget, 1 star, but really very solid. This one he had a little bit of a budget. Witchfinder General is Matthew Hopkins, that's played by Vincent Price. They gave him a beard because Michael Reeves didn't like Vincent Price's overacting. This is the one with that very famous line where at some point during the shooting, Vincent Price stops and says to Michael Reeves, because he was tired of his directing, he said, "You know, I've made over 100 movies. How many movies have you directed?" And Michael Reeves replied, "2 good ones."
Oh,
Kind of a legend now. I don't, you know, some people question if that conversation ever existed or if it did, if Vincent Price actually had a good chuckle about it afterwards. But it's in the annals of folklore of horror movies. But Vincent Price is just the most evil person you've ever seen. He's just accusing people of witchcraft, and there's no supernatural element. He's not really even mentally disabled or anything, you know, psychotic or anything like that. He's just pure evil. And I'm one of those people who just believes that you don't need to have a supernatural element to have a horror movie. You know, Jaws, King Kong, things like that didn't have supernatural elements. And sometimes, you know, it's good to have a psychotic person. Can also be Psycho was certainly horror,
Right.
but supernatural. This one, he didn't even have the mental illness. It's just, this guy's just evil.
Right.
And there was really a Matthew Hopkins. He really did exist. People don't seem to know much about him. I've tried to actually research it myself and was only able to find his name associated with Witchfinders, but not really any of the details that he gives in this movie. And so he finds a young couple and he basically just tortures the hell out of them for an hour and a half. You know, and he's setting other witches on fire and things like this, you know, because the rule was if you accuse somebody of witchcraft, and the rule was if you dunked them in the water, if they drowned, they were innocent. But if they lived, they were put to death because they were a witch. That means they really were a witch, and they put them to death. This was a real law in Europe during that era. You know, we laugh at it now, but this was it. So he does. Yeah, he does some of those things, and then whoever accused you, if they were a witch, you know, if they were guilty of a witch, you got everything they had. You got whatever land, money, anything they had was yours. So, you know, there was a lot of incentive to accuse other people of witchcraft, which is what Vincent Price does in this movie. It has an alternate title of The Conqueror Worm, and I believe that's the British title. Witchfinder General is the more generally accepted title. One other thing too, though, it was also part of American International's resurgence into the Poe movies, because they did the 8 Poe movies in the early 60s. This was in the later 60s. They did the Oblong Box. This one is The Conqueror Worm, so that made it a Poe movie. Had nothing to do with the poem. And I think you mentioned it last week, or last time. The Cry of the Banshee, I think was one of the others. I think that's another one of that Poe series. There might have been one other, but I think it was might have been just those 3. Anyway, there might have been another one I'm forgetting, but anyway, it was part of that resurgence where they were trying to bring back some of those Poe movies because they were very successful. And the ending, I don't want to give up too much, but it's so deserved.
Right.
It kind of
almost like it mirrored a little bit Cry of the Banshee, but Cry of the Banshee had more supernatural into
it. It does. Yeah, there are some similarities in there as well, with Vincent Price certainly being just as evil. And Vincent Price is good at playing evil people, but this might have been his masterpiece of evil, because he is just, you really want to hate him.
Oh yeah.
And he has this cold stare throughout the whole thing too. That's, I mean, seen him in so many movies, but he really pulls this one off better than, might be one of his best performances as well.
Right.
But that's my next one. 1967, that one is.
Okay, so for my next one, this one actually was my favorite horror movie for many years. Just recently been replaced by one that I like more. But back to John Carpenter, Prince of Darkness, which is, I love how it has a mix of science fiction in there, along with the supernatural cosmic horror. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, there's a college professor who gets called to bring a group of various people, various fields of study, to investigate something in an old Catholic church. The Catholic Church believes they have Satan in this cylinder, and the cylinder's starting to get very active, the liquid inside of it. And so they want them to make a record of it. They think they're gonna be able to record and prove that it is Satan and that Satan's real and warn the world. Only it really isn't. It's something, I mean, it is what they called Satan, but it's something very dark and very evil, possibly even more evil than real Satan would be. And there are a lot of other things happening, end of world type stuff. And again, Carpenter, it starts off really slow and just suddenly just snowballs into just complete craziness with some reanimated dead people. And this probably isn't giving too much away, but I remember one of my favorite lines in that movie is when there's a guy who's left for a while and nobody's seen him, and they were not really thinking about it, and he suddenly shows up outside and his voice is all messed up, and he's like, "Hello, I've got a message for you. Pray for death." And I just love that line. It's like you guys are in deep trouble. You might as well just hope you die quickly.
Right. Yeah, that was a good one. I like that one. That's one of the, I mean, not many people, again, talk about that one,
No, it's one that everybody sort of overlooks. And I think a lot of people don't really, either they have never seen it or they don't really care that much about it. But for some reason, it really works well for me. I don't know why, but it just really speaks to me in some ways. I like that whole cosmic horror thing. And
plus it's got Alice Cooper in it.
Yeah, I mean, a non-speaking role, but yeah.
Yeah.
Which if
you just sold me on that one.
Probably a good thing.
I'm gonna have to do a John Carpenter kick at some point. I'm trying to go through the Romero zombie movies right now. Maybe when I get done with that.
Well, my last one is one that I saw way back in the 80s at rented it on VHS, and it's called The Pit. And this this boy, he finds this pit that it has a family of the troglodytes, but and he brings his enemies, people he doesn't like, he brings them close to the pit and says, "I think there's something down there." And people look over, and he pushes them in,
Oh.
and it the actor that plays him, very bland acting. I mean, he's a kid. I mean, like 9 years old, so he doesn't. Probably if he continued on, maybe he got some acting classes, but it was just just almost like he's just reading the lines, not putting any emotion into him. And but also comes across as very creepy. And so he does this for, I want to say, a half a dozen people, and until they figure out what was going on. So the family moved, and then the little boy, he meets this little girl, and she has a pit. So I won't go any further than that. But it's just one of these very interesting. No gore whatsoever. It's all implied that the victims are being eaten alive, But it's like, and he calls them the trogs, because he can't pronounce troglodyte, so he calls them the trogs.
I actually saw that movie back in the drive-in. I think that was the first drive-in movie I saw without my parents.
Ah.
I had some friends who had older brothers who wanted to go to went to the drive-in once in a while. So they had younger brothers, so I got to tag along with the other younger brothers. So it's very low budget, you can tell, but
yeah,
it's actually not a bad movie. I thought I was the only person who'd ever seen that movie. I haven't seen it in years. I don't think I saw it since I saw it at the drive-in way back then, but it stuck with me.
I saw it on VHS, and then for the longest time I was trying to remember, what's this movie. I remember as a kid, and there was a hole in the ground, and I was like, what's this movie? And then all of a sudden, when it came out on Blu-ray, oh no, I saw it first again on YouTube. I was like going, oh, that's it, that's the one. And then when it came out on Blu-ray, I got it because I really enjoyed it. This was just one of my favorites, lesser known.
It is. It's another one of those. They do a lot with very little, and I kind of like movies like that.
All right, you're up.
Okay, it's my last one. We're back in Italy. We're back with Dario Argento. This is another movie that I, again, have to use that term, a work of art. Suspiria. I think it's just a phenomenal movie. I think it's Argento's best, in my opinion, although I haven't seen Phenomenon. But it does have it's one of the Witches trilogy that he never finished. He never did the third movie.
Yeah, he did.
Did he do it then, eventually?
Yeah.
Like into the 2000s or something, wasn't it? By the time you finished it?
Yeah, but it was so far from the second one,
Yeah, like decades after the first two. The first two, I think, come out early on. But I always liken this movie to the Painting the Screen, because it's like an hour and a half of just an anxiety attack, essentially. Is the whole movie. I mean, she's it's the girl in the dance, in the ballet dance school, and you can tell she's very anxious, and she starts having these nightmares and feelings that this thing is out to get her. That isn't really exactly defined, but she goes running through the whole school and everything. It really it's an insane movie. But I thought it was incredibly good. I'm probably overdue to revisit it actually. I've been thinking about revisiting that one again because it has been a little while, but I do remember really enjoying it and thinking it was there was another one of those that was just a work of art from Dario Argento, and I've seen a few of his now too. I've seen, like you mentioned, Deep Red and Tenebrae, or is that the same one as Deep Red? They have so many different titles.
Different.
That was different. Okay, they have so many alternate titles. Sometimes I lose them in there, but I know Deep Red had another title. Demons was another one. But anyway, but I really thought this one was one of his best. That really it's really emotional, to watch the whole thing.
Oh yeah. And then that soundtrack. I mean,
Yeah, all of his soundtracks have that weird.
that
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, that alone, that added to like you said, the anxiety that just added to it, because it's like you're like going, what is actually going on here? And it was part of the Three Mothers trilogy, and the last one was called Mother. I think it was called Mother of Tears, and the other one was Inferno.
Yeah, Inferno. I think I did. Eventually, I did wind up seeing that one. I'm gonna have to check out the third one. I have not seen the third one. I couldn't remember if he made it or if did that one come out after his death? One of them.
No, he's
close to death. Okay.
He's still around. Dario's
still around?
Yeah.
Not too long. Okay.
Still making movies.
Oh, okay. I knew he was in the 2000s, but
yeah, I think he made something in the past 3 years. But I don't know. I don't remember the title. But he even did a Dracula adaptation,
I think he does have, or at least a vampire.
which was,
Okay, yeah.
I mean, if you want to if you're gonna visit all of his movies, then you probably should watch it at least to see his take on it. But it's
Sure.
I think it had Rutger Hauer in it.
Hmm.
But yeah, Suspiria is still so haunting. If you get a chance, if you have Blu-ray, they have the 4K scan, not the 4K, but the 4K scan. All the colors are like they pop right out on you. I mean, that's the movie that he loved, the idea of the different colors, because I think the first one, Suspiria, had a lot of reds, and Inferno had a lot of blues, and I forget what Mother of Tears had, but it's pretty good.
A lot of those later 60s, early 70s movies, they were trying to advertise that they had color now. So they would make it really bright, just color, right? Like the Hammer movies, they just really made a vivid color, which I kind of like that look myself. I think if you're going to do color, make a color, right?
Exactly. All right.
Okay, so mine, as I said, for years and years, Prince of Darkness was my favorite horror movie. Well, now, 2019, Color Out of Space came out, and that movie, I'm a Lovecraft fanatic anyway, and I like cosmic horror, but that movie, I think I've only seen it maybe 5 or 6 times now, but I think I've actually written 4 or 5 different reviews of it over time, in different places, because I absolutely love that movie. For those who don't know, a meteor lands in this farm, and really strange things start happening to the wildlife there and eventually the people. And it's got Nicolas Cage, which a lot of people don't like Nicolas Cage. I happen to like him. I'm not like crazy about him, like I like every movie he does, but I enjoy him in a lot of films. And Tommy Chong, which is, you would never expect that to work, but he plays sort of this hippie guy, and he obviously pulls that off pretty well. He's got a lot of years of experience playing a hippie. But the movie, one of the things that I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, how did they get, the sky, just the sky and stuff, all these vibrant colors the whole time? Well, it turned out a lot of it was CGI that they did over the actual, backgrounds and stuff. And it's like so subtle sometimes that you really can't even tell that it's CGI. And then they've got like talking about a movie that's a work of art. I mean, so much of that is just it's just beautiful. It's grotesque and horrifying, but it's also beautiful. Like they've got a little weird grasshopper dude that looks, I mean, you can tell it's not real, but you would almost believe it is some real bug in the Amazon somewhere. Um, and then, it gets into like body modification, much like the Carpenter's The Thing. I think they may have taken some cues from that because some of it sort of reminds me of it. So it's like they didn't do all CGI. There are a lot of practical effects too. I think they did a sort of a perfect balance of the two. And again, it's one of those movies that just sort of snowballs as it goes and it becomes absolutely insane. Now, Richard Stanley was supposed to do two more Lovecraft films. That was supposed to be the first. There was a big problem with him that I'm not going to get into, except that it turned out it was a false accusation. But he lost those deals for the other two movies, which is a real shame because I was really looking forward to seeing what he was going to do with two more Lovecraft stories. But at least we have Color Out of Space, and it is a work of art.
Yeah, I think I've seen that once, and it was really good. I mean, I liked how the color, basically the colors out of space. I just like it. It had, they were so vibrant
And I love how in the story, in Lovecraft's story, the color is a color like nobody can describe. It's not like a real color.
right.
And so they sort of manage that with that sort of pinkish purple sort of, it almost looks indescribable,
Right, right. Yeah, I haven't read the book, but that one. I mean, I can definitely tell that they probably got as close as I mean, Lovecraft movies are hard to get close to the books,
and
just like any other kind of.
they brought it into the modern era. That took place in like the early 1900s, late 1800s. So, it's a lot different, but I thought they did a great job of updating it and making it relevant to modern audiences while also capturing the essence of the story really well.
Yeah, that is one that I've read. It is one that, as far as Lovecraft goes, is probably a little bit more cinematic than most of his, which still isn't saying it's very cinematic, but it might be a little bit more than some. But I haven't seen that version. Have you seen Die Monster Die from the 60s?
No,
Was another.
no, I keep wanting to get that and check it out, and I haven't yet.
Yeah, actually, if you love that one, you might still like that one better. But that is another depiction of the color out of space.
Right. There's also a German one from a few years ago that everybody raves about too, but I have not seen that one either.
Right. The Die Monster Die does take some liberties. I will say that much to the story, a bit more than usual. But it has Boris Karloff and Nick Adams. But I haven't seen that German one either. But that might be interesting.
Yeah, I saw that Die Monster Die. That was
I have
It's a good movie, but it certainly takes its liberties with the source material.
I have a DVD of Die Monster Die on my Amazon wish list. I keep meaning to pick it up.
Still a good fun movie though.
Yeah, I know. I always put so many movies in my wish list, and it's like it just gets bigger and bigger, and to the point where it's like I go back to the beginning, and sometimes I wonder, now why did I really put that movie there? I'm not 100. And the other times I was like, wait, I wanted that one. And it's like it's kind of crazy, just so much out there to buy. It's not even. I think if we had the money to buy them all, it would probably fill probably a dozen or two houses.
I know, right? I play the lottery once in a while. Never know.
Yeah, hey,
Not everything.
never know. Could be that one time.
Can't win if you don't play, right? That's what they say.
Right.
No, you always win if you don't play because you keep your money.
Sure.
Fair enough.
You keep your dollar.
Yeah. It's $2 now.
Oh, it's $2? Okay.
Yeah, it's $2 now. At least most of them are. I don't play too often because it is pretty much throwing your money.
Well, we had a lot of great titles. I mean, I'm glad that each of us had 5 different ones.
Yeah,
It
no,
makes it easier.
different sort of types of movies and eras and stuff too. That was cool.
Yeah. And also, because I like it. I watch videos like this on YouTube to get recommendations. So hopefully, if anyone's seen, if they haven't seen any of these movies, they got 15 movies to go hunt down. A majority of them aren't on streaming. So for the people out there that only stream, you're going to miss out. You can probably find some.
Don't get me started on that subject. That's
right.
I mean, it is best to have the physical media, but sometimes that stream is just so convenient. It's just right there.
When you do streaming, you're relying on them to keep it out there for you to see.
I know. There's other issues too, because sometimes they do edit them in ways that weren't in the original. There are issues, but I try to find as original versions as we can, but we can go into that in another episode.
Yeah, we could do that one. We did something like that on my other channel with music. So it's a interesting subject. I mean, I don't think there's really a right or wrong answer. It's more personal preference. But we're gonna hopefully get this up by Halloween, so people can go out and give them enough time to go seek the movies, as much of them as they can, and then have fun with it. And if anybody out there has watched any of these 15, let us know down in the comments what you think of them, and also, what are your 5 all-time favorite cult horror movies? Because maybe there's 5 that we don't know about that you like. So
maybe next year we can come back and do this, and we'll have some that we got from suggestions.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Yeah, for a future episode. All right. Well, thank you guys again. Again, episode 3. I think we've done good so far, and we'll have another episode. Possibly it's going to be I want to say next month. Got to figure out the times that we're going to do everything. I don't know if it'll come out before or after Thanksgiving in United States if you're there, and if not, then it doesn't really matter. But anyways, I want to thank Gary and Bill for joining me again. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye, everyone. Thank you very much for watching this episode. And stay tuned for the next one.